man, and we turn screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. Looks like it's just us watching ourselves again this morning. No, we got someone on YouTube watching. John Atakis, good morning. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you. Okay, so we're going to jump in, and don't forget today we're going to try to do a raid, so everybody's got to be really patient with us because we are learning on the fly. There's no training manual for this.
It could go sideways.
Could go sideways fast, yes. So just to follow up with this story we've been covering in Washington, vis-a-vis all the floods. So Pacific was probably the most suburban neighborhood from what I saw that got flooded. Well, sort of. I mean, Auburn, Kent. Okay. A lot of places got flooded. But Pacific, right, got a good dose of Pacific Northwest communist government. Not even 24 hours after the levee was repaired, the city of Pacific asked for volunteers to put notices on all homes that were flooded and had to evacuate to make sure you get a permit with the city before you repair anything. Am I the only one that's not a fan of this? So this is what they did. During this difficult time, the city of Pacific is committed to helping residents navigate the next steps and making sure your home and property are safe as possible. Before doing any repair work, please contact your insurance company and review City of Pacific's resources page where you can find helpful information, including a survey where you can report damage. And then you must have obtained a floodplain development permit and a SDE determination from the City of Pacific before you repair, alter, or replace any of the following: walls, siding, plaster, cabinets, flooring, electrical systems, plumbing, heating, foundation. You must obtain a substantial damage assessment before you repair the above. Basically, they are going to make it hard to fix your property, hard to get back into it, so the hotels will be full for a while. Okay, this is the kind of madness. It's like
this might expose me a little bit, but this is utter bullshit.
It totally is, man.
You can't clean up your own mess.
You can't fix your cabinets. Like, why?
Yeah, get bent.
Walls. I mean, I can kind of understand foundation. I can get there.
Oh, sure.
I can get there. I can get their electrical system.
Sure.
You know, they should have an emergency permit, get a licensed guy to come fix it. That should be enough.
This letter, if it went out at all, should include only life safety items, you know, things like electricity.
Yes. Yes. Electricity.
Things that could kill you.
Yeah.
Not your fence. On
this whole list here, I can see foundation and electrical as the only things that you should have to get a permit for.
Yeah.
Right. I mean.
But honestly, in this state, you can fix your own electrical. It's legal. You can do it.
As long as the city approves the permit. That's the problem. You still have to have their permit. Yes, if it's owner occupied, you can do your own electrical. I saw a really funny video yesterday where an inspector was looking up in a attic, and he goes, "Who did your electrical?" And she goes, "My nephew did the electrical. He's pretty handy." And he goes, "When did his house burn down?" She goes, "About 2 years ago." "Wait, how'd you know his house burned down?" And it's all the electricals, like the junction box are open. Have you seen that video?
Yes, I have. That was so funny.
When did the house burn down? "About 2 years ago." "Wait, how did you know that?" Another thing is the Brown shooter ended up not being the person that we had joked about it being. The professor ended up being someone else. And turns out there was also an MIT physics professor that was killed as well. Turns out same killer, MIT professor, and this guy went to school together. So this was targeted. Oh, I'm going to change my order. Who's got to change their sound? Someone's got to change their sound. Is it you?
Nope. I'll throw you under the bus real quick on this one.
All right, here we go.
Attacks may be linked, and this is from multiple law enforcement sources to both us, our 5 Investigates team, and ABC News. And that information about this connection was developed in the last 24 hours as detectives working on both cases. So Providence Police taking the lead in Rhode Island, and Brookline Police with Mass State Police taking the lead here in Massachusetts. They compared notes, and the sources said investigators believe they are close to identifying a suspect, which would be a huge break.
Yeah,
and frankly, a sigh of relief for the whole region.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned, them comparing notes. We only have those enhanced images of the person of interest in Providence. And as you mentioned, in Brookline, these are both pretty residential areas, right? Very residential areas. And we talk about what happened to that MIT professor here, Nuno Loureiro. There are reports that neighbors heard the gunshots that went off and likely were able to look back and see if they had any video or anything like that to go into their investigation, hopefully is leading police to figure out if there is a possible link here or not. Our Emily Maha is in Providence. She's at Brown University. She has been talking with professors there on hand, talking with students there throughout this investigation. What are you hearing now with this new update that's been coming in?
Well, Jessica, you had mentioned this is kind of the first really big update we've gotten in several days. And people here, people in the community, students, staff, faculty, they're anxious for information. They're anxious.
Yeah. So turns out the shooter is a Portuguese guy, not Islamic, probably didn't shout Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar. In prison, I had to listen to that all the time.
Oh boy.
5 times a day. Allah Akbar. They'd like yell their prayers out for Islam. Anyways, it kind of sent chills down my spine every time I heard it. But apparently it's probably not Islamic, but he ended up shooting himself in a storage unit up in New Hampshire. So shoot her down. Now, throughout this investigation, we found out some absolutely ridiculous things. Brown University had basically turned off their entire camera system, so they had no camera stuff. Why? Because they didn't want any kind of facial recognition or anything tracking a bunch of their students that happened to be illegal aliens there. Turns out we're now finding out that
Which I'm okay with, but if you're going to do that, and that's going to be the policy, just take the cameras down and don't lie to people.
Yeah, let's go back to 1962. You know what I mean? So then the other thing, too, is we're finding out other blue jurisdictions have been turning off their flock cameras. Like, did you know that the flock cameras here in the state of Washington are all disabled right now?
I don't even know what a flock camera is.
Flock cameras are the traffic cameras that track license plates and take pictures of you as you go under, and this is how they find kidnappers and silver alerts and amber alerts. Is these flock cameras are instrumental in doing that.
They're turned off.
Yeah, they're turned off. So,
okay.
The only ones that are turned on are the ones specifically designed to give tickets. Can't stop the revenue, but absolutely can stop anybody from cracking ice or any other criminal.
You can't tell me it's not about the money.
Yeah, exactly. So then, Carlitos, good morning. Ponyboy, good morning. Frazier, good morning. Okay, so this is big news. This is actually really exciting. Changing the world. Big time. The buses will be free. I've said this for a little while, right? Well, this is one of the things that's going to make buses free.
Nuclear fusion has always been there. It really is the holy grail. It's like the sun. But we haven't been able to harness that yet. It just hasn't, the technology, the science. But that's the difference between TAE and all the other nuclear companies out there around the world. This is the one that won't rely on rare earth elements, won't have to rely on a bunch of magnets. And it's the only company that's actually built something. That's what we were most impressed with, was not just all the scientists and all the engineers that had worked with private funding, all private funding, I must say. And now what they're looking to do is they need a way to get in and access the public markets. We provide that opportunity for them to access the public markets. And I would just encourage everyone to actually look at this company. I think when you look around the country, look around the world, this is the world's premier nuclear fusion company without question. And when we talk at Trump Media and Technology Group, what do we want to do? We want to acquire crown jewel assets. This is a crown jewel asset that could change the world.
So what this is a small fusion reactor that doesn't run on helium-3 that you have to get off the moon. It runs on some, Omega, whatever, and it's going into production. This is the solution. He was talking on a different show with a longer clip, kind of all the details, but Truth Social, to save the day, like all these data centers and all this demand for electricity, this is it. It's like build the thing and throw some chemicals in there and you've got the power of the sun. Indefinitely free energy, Ron, like cheap, affordable energy right now coming to market. Truth Social just acquired that company, and they're a technology company. When they got debanked and everything, they went crypto, they went everything. So they are on the front edge of kind of this new tech wave for companies to move into, and they just acquired that asset, and it will hit the market pretty soon, and it's probably going to solve our electrical problems.
Sweet.
Like out of the blue, I'm working on fusion. I remember one of my favorite shows when I was a kid with The Saint, right? And all the mathematics of fusion.
Val Kilmer.
So here we are. The future has arrived. Like it's one of those things. There are things happening behind the scenes while we're all, being divided and, being told the economy is horrible and stuff like that. Real stuff is happening. They just acquired a fusion machine or a fusion power generator, and they're going to be taking it to market a lot sooner than later. Like, wow. So now our oil can just go into our cars. Can we just make plastics with it now? You know what I mean? Like we're not going to need it into the future. This is going to.
Well, we really could have a fleet of electric cars if we had fusion power energy. I'm not anti-electric car. I'm just anti-retarded policy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm anti-electric car if it means that all my light bulbs have to be like, fluorescent, whatever. Yeah. Okay. Another good thing that's happening. Elon Musk posted this. He says the matrix has been reprogrammed. Doge really did axe the federal workforce. So this is total. The number of federal workers has been declining since Donald Trump became president.
Whoa.
Right. And you can see back here, Biden gets elected. And then Trump. Woo! This is the lowest level since going back to like the 90s that we have federal workers employed.
Wow.
That's nice to see. Too bad they haven't fired most of the FBI agents. That's the only problem. Another really good piece of news that happened yesterday, and this kind of broke right as we were breaking up the show, but the inflation numbers came in. So CNN had a nice Harvard professor come in, economist, to try to show that these inflation numbers, no credit to Biden, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't go so well.
I mean, I was surprised. It was a better number than anyone was expecting. Look, inflation's been very high. It's stayed high. It has not been coming down. But, people were expecting it to be above 3%. It was well below 3%. I mean, I think the president will take this as good news. The investors will think that interest rates will get cut more. So, it was a positive news. There's no other way to spin it.
Absolutely.
No other way to spin it.
On MSNBC or what's the financial one? Not MSNBC. That's MS Now.
Boy. I have no idea.
CNBC.
Okay.
On CNBC, they audibly gasped because they're live on air, and then all of a sudden here comes the announcement. Oh, we got the inflation numbers. They were like 2 points lower than projected, right? Another huge piece of news. Yesterday, this happened at the Department of Health and Human Services. Okay, so these guys are in charge of all of our medical, pretty much oversee everything. Now, keep in mind, it was just 12 months ago, we had a transgender woman who is a man, Richard Levine, that identified as Rachel Levine, that was our Surgeon General. And they were pushing,
you would recognize her if we put up a picture.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
They were pushing puberty blockers, chest binders, dick tuckers, testosterone on little girls, the whole thing, right? Absolutely pushing a trans agenda. That has been completely reversed. These words were uttered at Health and Human Services yesterday.
This isn't The Onion or something like that?
Nope.
Okay.
Men are men. Men can never become women. Women are women. Women can never become men. Children are innocent and they need our protection.
Might not seem significant, but that's pretty significant. Why did we vote for Donald Trump? That's why.
Yeah.
Right? That's why. Dr. Oz went on to explain what was pushing all this transgender nonsense. And guess what? It's just like the traffic cameras that they've left off in Washington State.
Vaginoplasty, a procedure a child does not need, costs $60,000. Shockingly, a phalloplasty, the creation of a penis, costs on average in America, according to this data, high quality, $150,000 per child. I do believe, with doing some work, that these prices have continued to increase with increasing manufactured demand. And I must point out that the creation of a vagina, in that case of a phalloplasty, or a scrotoplasty where you add testicles, that's extra. Vaginoplasty.
I know it's a little uncomfortable to hear that, but this is like a big deal. This was being pushed on kids. We have that whistleblower out of that university in Texas that did 1,500 of these surgeries. And basically one day woke up and realized, because they had a patient come back in and was like, I didn't want to change my gender. My parents told me to say I was trans, and you just chopped up, and I'm 7. Right. And she's like, what? And she realized they were not doing any psychological work. If the kid checked the box that said trans, they went full steam ahead, financed it, everything. Right. Irreparably harmed these children's lives, giving prepubescent girls testosterone, right? Unbelievable stuff. It's over. RFK went on to give speeches about this and how basically they took away all liability protection. Manufacturers who produce chest binders, sports bras, that kind of stuff. You sell that to a kid, you market to a kid, product seizure, fines, all that kind of stuff. They just passed through the House yesterday, the trans bill that Marjorie Taylor Greene put out. You do one of these surgeries on a kid, it's felony offense, long time in jail.
Oh, good.
This is a screeching halt.
It's abuse, man.
It's a screeching halt to this industry. Now, all those kids that are on testosterone, all those kids that are on estrogen, puberty blockers, from what I heard, that ends today. Their prescriptions aren't being refilled.
Oh.
Now, one of the challenges with this is we are going to see violence. We're going to see violence. There have been studies done on parents of people who are transgender. They've murdered their children.
Oh,
right?
Man.
And they have the cognitive dissonance of what they've done. They cannot let you not believe that their kid is not doing that right, and they're not right by supporting that. And it's utter violence. It's mama bear protection. Don't you tell me my girl's not a boy. Right.
Oh, boy.
So we are going to see an outfall from this. Now, this is a tiny, tiny percentage of our population. But when you look at the number of trans shooters, trans violence and stuff like that, they call it the trans mafia and Trantifa. They will not go quietly into the night, but it's over.
Oof.
Like the regime is over. So no more doing that with kids. That is awesome, dude. So sit back for a second. We've had nuclear fusion in the last 24 hours. We've got the end to the trans mafia going after kids, and no more immunity by manufacturers, Pfizer, all of those people. It's like, pull back right now in 24 hours. It's a good day. And inflation came down way lower than expected. Okay, things are going pretty well, which is why the Democrats are in such a tough position, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. Harmeet Dillon was on with Glenn Beck, and she talked about what's going on over at the Justice Department and the Civil Rights Division. I have been wildly impressed by Harmeet Dillon. I think she has done a great job. In fact, if we end up with a new attorney general at any point, she's my number one go-to for that. She seems to really get what's going on. She's very proactive. In the private sector, she worked for patriots and stuff like that. She's been a Republican. In fact, she made her husband change his, she's like, I won't marry a Democrat. So she made him change his party affiliation. It came around eventually, right? That was
a little
years ago.
extreme.
Her husband passed away a year and a half ago from Parkinson's disease. But anyways, that was her long love story. She's like, I love you, but I can't marry you if you're a Democrat.
That's funny.
So anyway, she was on with Glenn Beck, and she talked about what's been going on even in her civil rights division and how she's getting pushback from the, quote, deep state from within. Now, they have cleaned house. 2/3 of her staff quit when she set the agenda. They just walked out. Oof. But of the staff that's remaining, she has some people, hanging back, doing not so great things, and she's aware of it.
Do you think that the people at the FBI and the DOJ in all levels realize that, because I know you do, do they realize how to the end the American people are? They're starting to lose faith. If we don't start to see people at least charged and have a fair trial, I'm not even saying that they go to jail. Hopefully they would if they broke a law. But, showing these people, because we keep getting investigation after investigation after investigation, and then it just sits there, There's a story out today about, the Clinton Foundation and all the investigations, what they found. I don't have any faith that nobody's going to jail for that. Nobody's going to go to jail for that. And we're at this place to where It's up to the DOJ and the FBI to do their job and then start bringing some justice, because if we lose in 28 and you haven't cleaned up and set clear rules of the law does matter, all these people got away with it last time. It's going to be 1,000 times worse in 2028.
No, I hear you, and I'm worried about it. I'm a citizen who loves this country, and as you know, I've donated countless millions of dollars of my billable time to being engaged in politics. And so let me just set some expectations. So you come into the DOJ. I had about 400 attorneys plus working in my department. I have 1/3 of that now, because when I set the rules of what we're going to do here in this department, 2/3 of the people pieced out and quit. And some of the ones who are left behind are leaking to the press what we are doing. And so that's the fight in my department, okay? And then you look at, where does most of this work occur? When you look at the hundreds of thousands, over 100,000 people who work at the Department of Justice, a lot of them work for the FBI. Well, it's only the very top layer of that is politically appointed and committed to the president's agenda. I would say the vast majority of that agency is, legacy, doing what they're doing, much of which was not good for America, I'm going to say.
Yeah. This is one of the challenges we have with criticizing Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, who, by the way, officially resigned yesterday. Didn't even mention it, but he'll be out in January. This is one of the challenges we have with criticizing Cash and all these people, is they're tasked with doing whatever the mission of the department is and reorienting it, like the FBI going after the 764 whatever online predator group. That's a big deal. You know, going into these cities and arresting these violent criminals, getting after and arresting the America's top 10 most wanted people in a matter of a month or whatever. Like you had to use the tools you have to go after these people. But at the same time, you really need to fire a lot of these people. Let me tell you how bad this is. OK, so one of my good friends. Good morning, Doug. How are you doing there? One of my good friends sent me a message yesterday. I was just looking at the chat there. And one of my good friends sent me this message yesterday. And he's a January 6er. And he said he got a message from his son. Now, he and his son were both January 6ers. He goes, "Hey, buddy, my son called me a little while ago, told me the FBI case agent that worked his portion of the case called him." So his son, both of them J6ers, right? So the FBI agent that worked his son's case called him, told him that the FBI had a new directive that they were combating left-wing extremism, asked him if he knew any of the anti-ICE protests, asked him if he was familiar with the encrypted chat rooms. He said he felt as if he was trying to recruit him for something. This is bullshit, Taylor, on many levels. Told him to document that phone call and email it to the attorney. They're up to their same old tricks. They've just changed their target.
Yeah, it sounds like entrapment all over 2.0.
Hey, you want to be a CI? Yeah. Now, put this on the backdrop of some of the nonsense that Jake Lang's out there doing, which, right, I try not to criticize other J6ers, but Jake Lang, for anybody who's familiar with him, he's the guy that was a J6er. I was in solitary confinement forever. I'll tell you right now, he was in solitary confinement forever because he doesn't play nice in the sandbox. Everybody hates him. Right. He gets up in your face and then he's a provocateur, but he makes sure you throw the first punch. So I met him twice, and both times he came into the J6 pod, he got thrown out of there within minutes. Wouldn't tolerate him at all. He took donation money, gave it to non-J6ers, gave it to other things. His dad owns Roto-Rooter. He'd send people out to stalk anybody that kind of spoke out against him. Bad dude. Bad dude. Objective liar, right? But he's out there now holding up pig's head with Korans in it, walking into Dearborn, Michigan, causing all kinds of trouble.
Oh, brother.
Okay. Provocateur. That's the kind of stuff. The FBI is out looking for informants, out looking for people to go and infiltrate these groups. Oh, that's all fine and dandy, except I know what it's like to be on the receiving end. Do your work, FBI. Do your own homework. Don't go out and work with snitches and get people to create situations, because that's exactly what they're doing. Oh, you lean a little left? Oh, well, let's get you to go a little further left, a little further left. Oh, now you've committed a crime. Same thing. Oh, you're a patriot. You're questioning the election. Okay, well, let's get you to push a gate. Let's get you to, you know what I'm saying? Oh, now we've got you on that. It's just disgusting. The entire system is It's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't. If we get rid of the FBI to protect good people like me, civil rights, we end up with online predators and we end up with all that stuff, right? But if we allow them to go after the online predators and we give them all these awesome tools, they'll just turn it into a political agenda at one point or another. So on one hand, while yes, you need to go after left-wing extremism, and you should go after right-wing extremism as well. The problem is the definition of extremism. Okay, when it's a moving target, who knows? Liz Harrington was on Newsmax talking about Bongino resigning from the FBI and kind of how the whole institution is just rotted. These agents that went after J6ers are now being weaponized to go after the left. At the end of the day, you're violating people's civil rights. Don't go looking for the crime. The crimes are self-evident. Just, take the crime and work backwards. Don't walk into them.
And also word that it might be Andrew Bailey who was brought in, the former AG, to take his place.
Well, yeah, we'll see what happens. He's already co-deputy director, which I think was kind of a sign that Dan Bongino was not going to stay in his role for that long. I really think that this is more proof that the FBI needs not really major reform, but to be dismantled and to be shut down. It is inherently corrupt. And when you bring in people with good intentions that try to change things from the top, it's really difficult if you don't change all the people at the bottom. And you still reportedly have 6 members of the FBI who were on the Get Trump operation, Arctic Frost, as it's called, that are still working at the FBI. You have the lead prosecutor on the so-called pipe bomber case, who literally tried to frame President Trump for January 6th. When you have the FBI trying to arrest him and imprison him to prevent him from running for office. So these people are still at the FBI and they're running the show. And sadly, it's not going to be reformed if that remains to be the case.
Liz, it's a really interesting take. And it probably did weigh heavily, we could just imagine on.
All right. So they have to dismantle the FBI, but the problem is just that. How are you going to, fulfill the mission of the FBI while at the same time dismantling it? I looked up yesterday just to confirm the FBI does not have a charter like the Marshals, the ATF, the DEA. They tried to get a charter back in the 70s, but they were declined, not given one. Probably a little bit because they'd spent 12 years spying on Martin Luther King for no reason. Okay, so we are about ready to get started with the raid. The channel has raided. Stop scrolling. The media will never show you this video. Oh yes, we have raided someone in Rumble. So are we there? Is that what we're doing? Did it do it? Okay, guys, start chatting. You gotta go talk. We're talking on somebody else's chat right now, I believe. I think channel has been raided. I mean, did it just kind of go through the way? Guys, we're learning on the fly here. Enter raid, paste copy URL, press enter to initiate the raid, confirm the details, and notify the viewers of the raid. Okay, so can you scroll at all, or is that it? Okay, so somebody jump in and say if they can see the raid. Enter raid into the chat box. Looks like it's right. This is kind of interesting. Notify viewers. We're letting you guys know. There should be like some kind of join button. Here, look, I'll show you here on the screen so you can. Copy the live raid. Fraser got kicked out of the channel. Well, that's just too bad. So it did take you guys into the other channel. So we don't go into the channel, they do. Is that how it works?
Oh, I don't know, but maybe the other channel didn't want us around.
Did you get kicked right out, or did they kick you out? Because I sent it into like a conspiracy show.
We're back.
Back?
Yeah.
So you went in and then got booted out. Is that how that
gonna
worked?
have to tell us what that experience was like, because we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We just keep doing our thing here. So is it one of those things where we just send our chatters into the other channel and we don't go with them?
I think so. That's kind of rude, isn't it?
That's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. Oh, that's cool. Well, fun. So can we? I think we can only do one right to advertised. What do you mean right to advertised?
I'm not sure.
I'm going to need a paragraph explanation here. I need to fully understand this process. Like we joined late. Like we joined late. Like you joined late into his chat, but it did go into that chat. Is that correct? I wonder if that show was over, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
No, he's got 15. Oh, look, no, Ponyboy was in their chat. Look, I'm showing his show. Ponyboy comes in and says, hello, Peasants Perspective has rated this stream. Yeah, you guys are probably able to chat in there. Oh, that's cool. Well, we did it. We did a raid. This is, I don't know who this guy is.
Their show to see if they appreciated that or not.
Do they appreciate? They've got about our viewership. This is awesome. See, this is cross pollination, you guys. This is great. He does got some. Oh, your channel stopped. Then we started a new channel and went through 2 advertisements. Okay. But I see Ponyboy made it into their chat. That's cool though. Huh. Hey, I'm going to say bye-bye. Oh, you're going to talk to him? Love you guys. Thanks for letting us raid you. There you go. That's kind of fun. We did a raid. Love you guys. Thanks for letting us in. There you go. Okay, well, that's fun. All right, everybody, please feel free to chat over there and say hello to our friend, the Calano. Tell me what they're all about. Tell us what they're all about. That's fun. Okay, cool. Well, we did something neat. That's really fun. Okay. Did a raid. All right, we'll just move on with our own show since we don't really get to participate in the raid that much. Okay, another thing that happened yesterday is Laura Loomer broke this little news, and this is the National Security Administration. At the request of one of our listeners, Robert McPeasant, I started watching the show Person of Interest with John Caviezel. Oh, it's such a good show. Excellent show. And it's a show that I would say season 1, watch every episode. After that, well, they have to develop the plot and bring in extra characters, and that's pretty much what destroys all good shows, right? So I don't know, I'm in like late season 2 or whatever, and my wife and I have really enjoyed it. Now, back when we first got married, we used to watch the show Alias with Jennifer Gardner, and that was the last show we watched. It's been 20 years. It's the last show we really watched together and enjoyed. Every other show has either been me compromising, like watching Downton Abbey with her, or her compromising and watching the first 10 minutes of Game of Thrones and then more, right? So we kind of have different tastes in movies. So we've been able to watch Person of Interest together, which has been really nice. To both we just quit watching TV. Yeah, so anyways, but in that show, right, they've got the data collection where the AI is watching them all the time, which, by the way, 10 years ago was like, oh, that's kind of unimaginable. Now it's like, that's happening here. Get the phone out of here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, turn off Alexa. You know what I mean? Alexa, play Peasants Perspective. So, or Siri, call dad. All of you guys are calling your dad right now, right? It's just invasive how the technology is. But in that show, I don't even remember where I was going with this. In the I can't remember where I was. Something to do with data collection or overwatchers. Overwatchers. Yeah, I don't remember. Data collection. Oh, NSA. That's right. Laura Loomer. Okay. So the NSA is that, right? It's able to collect all the data. Now, prior to, I don't know what point they got to be able to scan through it all, but it was just data collection. Right. It's just sitting on a hard drive somewhere. And if they ever have to reverse engineer a terror attack and figure out what's going on, it's somewhere deep inside those hard drives. Right. Well, with AI, it can listen in lifetime, interpret, pass on leads and stuff like that. So this is an incredibly powerful agency. It's an agency that has the power to know everything, basically. NSA sabotage, the illegal takedown of President Trump is underway. Sources tell me that Tim Kosibi has been selected as deputy NSA director despite a long history of deep state and anti-Trump affiliations. It's disturbing because Kosiba is very much aligned with former FBI director Chris Wray, as I have previously exposed. Does Tim Kosiba support killing FISA 702? Does Tim Kosiba support the decision to strip NSA director Paul Nakasone of his security clearance? Why do these guys all have like different names, right? Is on the record praising Nakasone, who helped China get away with meddling in the 2020 election to fraudulently install Joe Biden and Hunter Biden in the 2020 election was stolen from President Trump. I told Kirk Olson is the person who gave President Trump Kosiba's resume. Does Kirk Olson support placing Chris Wray supporter in the position of deputy NSA director? Does Kirk Olson support Cosiba said it was an honor to work with former CISA director John Easterly, who persecuted MAGA for Joe Biden and covered up foreign meddling in the 2020 election. Easterly also led censorship campaign against Trump supporters. Cosiba also praised April Falcon Doss, who illegally stripped Michael Ellis of a security clearance. Cosiba, who praised former NSA Director Milley and General Ha, who was fired by President Trump in April. Clearly, Cosiba is a horrible judgment. He's definitely not MAGA. President Trump needs to know about Cosiba's worship of Christopher Wray. Cosiba will weaponize NSA against President Trump and all of his friends, like all of his friends did. Who is trying to set up Trump? Look at my receipts and tell me I'm wrong. So she posts obviously lots of different receipts, of them posting publicly, oh, I love you, I support you, that kind of stuff. Anyways, that is discouraging, but what you gonna do? I mean, only so many people know how to deal with that stuff, I guess. So I guess they're all leaning to the left. Another thing that happened yesterday is there was a DC court where there was a DC court that did a injunction against Donald Trump, or a ruling against Donald Trump. And of course it went up to appeals. And this kind of ended up being a slap in the face. These are our judges. Okay. So I'm going to show you something. This is a lawyer who's kind of dissecting this appeals decision. And he talks about standing and jurisdiction and how this district judge just seemed to forget the entire first year of law school.
In their motion for a stay, Trump did not object to the district standing. Article 3 courts, of course, have an independent obligation to verify their own jurisdiction and authority. Permitting the District of Columbia to sue the president and other federal officials based on a sovereign injury is unprecedented and likely at odds with the unique legal status of the District of Columbia. In subsequent proceedings, this important procedural question should be given further consideration. In other words, this whole thing is bullshit. This is all bullshit. This suit should never have been allowed in the first place, and trial Judge Giacob does not have Article 3 authority to hear this case because the District of Columbia doesn't have Article 3 standing to bring this case. It's like a parent suing it's like a child suing their parent over parental authority. Crazy stuff. From the unelected black robe tyrannical. And that'll be up. So they're not making a ruling on that. They're not saying on the merits the District of Columbia can't sue. But what they're saying is, listen, we're a majority of the panel. We don't see how DC can sue. So when we send this back to you again, now that we've reversed your preliminary injunction, you're gonna start looking at this on the legal merits, Judge Giacob. Just keep in mind, it's our opinion. There's no jurisdiction here. So you better look at that closely, or we're just going to reverse you on that basis.
So the District of Columbia, which is a creature of the federal government, it's a special district, sued Donald Trump, its owner, its sovereign leader. Okay? Like, you can't do that. Kids suing their parents over, you can't have parental rights. Excuse me. Yeah, I can. He goes on to further explain what's going on with a lot of these judges that just happen to be illegal immigrants.
I'm covering Trump's push to redefine who counts as an American. What we're talking about here is Trump's announced that he's going to increase efforts to identify naturalized American citizens who should be denaturalized, typically by committing fraud at some point in their naturalization process. So this is going to be the members only show. We're going to cover this topic in detail. And fraud, especially among third world migrants, is rampant at every level of their culture. I firmly believe that if we were to look at every naturalized American citizen from India in the last 10 years, fewer than 1 in 10,000 would be found not to have committed fraud at some point in their naturalization process. I think these are all fraudulent naturalized American citizens. They're fakes. That's what I expect. That's what we're going to cover. And then it occurred to me, if we're going to be looking at naturalized American citizens, we've got a bunch of judges. We have a bunch of federal judges who are naturalized American citizens. I wonder what we would find. I wonder what we would find if we looked at their naturalization process. Because keep in mind, becoming a naturalized citizen is a long process with many steps, many incremental phases. Maybe you come here on a tourist visa or a student visa or a work visa. Maybe you have to renew that visa. Maybe you apply for a green card. Maybe you get a temporary green card, and then maybe that's turned into a permanent green card. You're a permanent resident alien in the United States. And then you want to become a naturalized citizen, so you apply through that process. And all this time, you're sharing all your background information, your credentials, your degrees, everything. I wonder how many naturalized federal judges we have. And I wonder if any of them committed fraud at any step in that process and should be stripped of their citizenship and therefore removed from the federal bench, because you can't be a federal judge if you're not an American citizen. I wonder if that might be another way to remove some of these feckless, unelected, black-robed, tyrannical, inferior federal district trial court judges, other than impeachment, other than firing them for failing to serve during good behavior, that they are in fact not legitimate American citizens.
So they did a little digging on some of Joe Biden's judicial appointments, right? Because they clearly are starting to, pull at the edges of the sweater, right? Pull on some of these strings. And they found judges that Joe Biden appointed to Article 3 positions that he didn't sign their commission. It was stamped, not auto pen, stamped, like in block letters. They used a stamp in lieu of a signature, which means Joe Biden probably had nothing to do with those commissions. What do you do? There's no precedent for this. There's no precedent for this. You have dozens of judges that have stamps on their commissions. Now, if you go back and you look at their, like in the DC circuit, I think there's like 16 judges. It's like 6 of them are foreign born. Okay. It's like pretty significant numbers. This issue goes all the way back to the border. Closed border, you never get anybody coming over like that, right? Because you got to come by air, come through the port of entry, and the process starts correctly. But when you get into the country and then you're reverse engineering your naturalization, which is what was happening, especially the last 4 years, right? You get here, you show, somehow you get across the border, and then you show up and you're like, oh, I need asylum. And they're like, here's a social. Right. So Secretary Burgum transferred a bunch of land near the border to the United States military. So it just used to be, BLM land or whatever it was. And they just transferred it all over to the military to create a military installation, which gives the military pew pew.
This is not the first transfer we made, but one of many from the Department of Interior on a temporary basis to the Department of War. Theodore Roosevelt in the early 1900s, before Arizona was even a state, came up with what's now called the Roosevelt Reservation, which gives us the ability in law to transfer a little strip of land right along the border. Theodore Roosevelt came up with the words in his order were to stop illegal smuggling into our country. And of course, what do we have with human trafficking, drug trafficking? And so across the southwestern border, 41% of the distance between the Gulf of America and the Pacific Ocean was interior land. And so we've been in the process of transferring that to the Department of War. If someone steps on that, they're entering a military installation. It helps with us having the authorities to help make sure we keep our border secure.
They're entering a military installation. So you might not be met by border guards. You might be met by M16 rounds. You know what I mean? Like it changes the calculation just a little bit. And this is why, right? All the way up in Oregon, there was just this indictment that was released yesterday. 4 Mexican nationals unlawfully residing in the United States accused of illegally possessing firearms with false statements. Now, when we talk about not trusting institutions and we talk about bureaucratic rot, here's a great example of it, right? We've entrusted our government to keep us safe. We've entrusted our government to make sure that whatever laws we pass, that those things get executed. That if you have a form or something that requires a background check, that a background check is actually done. Well, apparently that hasn't really been the case. In Medford, Oregon, 4 Mexican nationals unlawfully residing in the United States made their initial appearance today after allegedly making false statements on their application to purchase firearms for illegally and for illegally possessing firearms. Samuel Rodrigo Melo Santos, 27, Samuel Amador Ortega, 23, Aldo Melo Amador, 23, and Oscar Amador Ortega, 21, have been charged by criminal complaint with alien in possession of a firearm and making false statements on ATF Form 4473. I was in prison with a ex-police officer who made a false statement on this same form. He checked one of the boxes incorrectly, and they put a cop in prison because he filled out this form improperly. And otherwise, in every other way, was a legal citizen. I don't know what box he checked incorrectly. I have no idea. But he was a cop, legally able to carry a firearm, and he went to go buy a firearm for personal use, and they rolled him up. Okay.
Wow.
According to court documents in July 2025, so this year, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives ATF investigators, as part of a compliance inspection, began reviewing ATF Forms 4473, known as the Firearms Transaction Records on Federal Firearms License in Cave Junction, Oregon. ATF, blah, blah, blah. So then it goes on to say, must be completed by the person who is purchasing a firearm. During the inspection, investigators observed repeated sales of the same make and model of firearm by a group of individuals sharing the same address in O'Brien and Medford, Oregon, indicative of firearms trafficking. As of July 22nd, 2025, Amador Ortega has purchased 25 firearms from the FFL in Cave Junction and 2 other FFLs located in Southern Oregon since April 4th, 2025. So it goes on, a total of 16 firearms for one of them, 36 for another of them, 91. Santos purchased 91 firearms.
So they're real enthusiasts.
A little more. Okay. They amassed, what does that end up being? 100 and something total firearms. Okay.
Total gun Louis.
200 firearms, some insane number. On ATF Form 773, defendants wrote Mexico for place of birth, but they checked the box next to the United States for country of citizenship. An immigration query into these people concluded they have no legal status in the United States and are residing unlawfully in the United States. So, yeah, I was born in Mexico. Oh, U.S. citizen. I thought that when you filled out that form, it like went somewhere and they like looked at it and like examined it and like checked the.
Well, I thought so too.
Okay, so you know when they talk about like they get all ticked off because rednecks go to gun shows and they go to a loophole. The loophole is the ATF itself. Who's background checking this?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Don't give me no crap because I want to sell a gun to a redneck. You know what I mean? This is like, obviously these guys are coming in. They're illegal. They, probably the state of Oregon issued them a driver's license. There's no record of them ever crossing the border. They're completely illegally. And they bought a couple hundred guns.
Yeah. I wonder what happened to all those guns.
These are not consequence-free actions. These are not enthusiasts that just happen to live out in Oregon and moved up from Mexico. They're clearly probably distributing these guns to gang members, to other, you know what I'm saying? Like they've become straw buyers for some organization. It doesn't even mention any gang affiliation or anything like this. This is absolutely insanity. What do we pay the ATF or whoever processes these applications to do? What are we doing here?
I don't know,
Rules
but
for me,
in the letter,
I got to let the city of Pacific know that I'm replacing some wet cabinets and I got to get a permit and go through a process. But I can just go down to a gun dealership, tell them I'm born in Mexico, check the box citizen, and they're like, here you go, bro. That's 23 of the same model gun you bought this month. That's incredible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's incredible.
But I can't.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, I love this.
I really like black.
AR-15. Can I get a couple bump stocks and silencers to go with it? Oh my goodness. Oh, we did an audit. Listen.
You punched my card.
There should be no compliance inspections by the ATF because every application I assumed was being checked.
Right.
Apparently they just like, yeah, hold on, we'll go run your app, and they walk into the back room, have a cup of coffee, take a smoke out the back.
I don't know if you heard me, but when you read the letter, it says right in there, we decided to look in the records. So I was like,
you didn't do it? What was the application for? What? But you'll nail the cop up in Philadelphia for probably doing something like, you know what I mean? Like, oh man. he probably put I was born in a city that's kind of two cities, North Bend, Coos Bay. And my whole life I grew up thinking I was born in North Bend because that's where grandma lived. I was born where grandma lives. It wasn't until I was like 17 I realized I was born in Coos Bay. Okay. That'd be like, I was born in Seabeck, and it's like, well, no, you were born in Silverdale. Your parents lived in Seabeck. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Now, there was Judge Dugan. Pray the Rosary Daily mentioned this earlier. This is Judge Dugan out of Wisconsin, now in Milwaukee. Remember, she is the judge that assisted illegal immigrants who were on trial in her courtroom to escape and flee ICE, who had to detain her and were waiting for him in the hallway. She dragged the other judge out there with her in their robes, which is totally unusual. She told the ICE agents to go talk to the Chief Justice to buy time. She ran the defendant out the door that the jury comes in and out of. It's not for public use. And there was one ICE agent who didn't go to the Chief Justice and followed the guy into the street and ended up chasing him down, right? Well, she went on trial and was convicted.
For the first time, we're seeing Judge Hannah Dugan outside her courtroom April 18th, wearing her black robes, appearing to confront several federal agents there to arrest Eduardo Flores Ruiz, a Milwaukee man and Mexican national charged locally with 3 counts of domestic battery.
I wonder if he has any guns that he bought with ATF form 4473. You know what I'm saying?
Video released by Milwaukee County through an open records request is part of the evidence in the case against Judge Dugan, who's charged with obstructing a federal investigation, concealing Flores Ruiz, allowing him to leave her courtroom by a different door after sending the agents to speak to the chief judge. Flores Ruiz, dressed in black with his attorney, is seen in several of the videos leaving by that other door. One prosecutors say was used by jurors and not open to the public. As he leaves, though, he is seen in the hallway, followed by another agent. As Flores Ruiz gets into the elevator to leave, the agent slips in as well. According to the criminal complaint against Dugan, that agent followed them down. The agent seen here following out of the building downstairs, and once backup arrived, they tried to arrest Flores Ruiz, who another video shows ran north in front of the courthouse for nearly a block before agents caught up with him and arrested him. Federal agents arrested Dugan herself a week later.
Eduardo Flores Ruiz's domestic violence case is moving through the Milwaukee County Court. He is, however, in federal custody on his immigration arrest. The FBI arrested Judge Dugan at the county courthouse 1 week later on April 25th. She pleaded not guilty in a federal court last week.
Judge Dugan, your response.
That's Dugan exiting the federal courthouse.
Okay, so she got convicted. She had 2 charges. One was a misdemeanor charge, count 1. Count 2 was a felony charge. She got the count 1, the misdemeanor she was acquitted of by the jury. Count 2, she was found guilty, the felony charge. It carries up to a 5-year prison sentence. So I asked Grok, what are the sentencing guidelines? Because often, I had 20-year max sentencing. Sentencing guidelines weren't 20 years. Okay, she's looking at between 0 and 2 years in prison. Okay. If they add any enhancements, it might be like 1 to 3 years in prison. I wouldn't be surprised if she gets 0 time in prison. No criminal history, blah, blah, blah. This is atrocious, right? When you put on that black robe, you have you're a king in your courtroom, right? You have a high amount of authority. You have a high duty. I don't care that you had no criminal record. The point of being there was that you don't commit crimes.
You betrayed the high duty.
You betrayed that high duty. In my opinion, they should max out 5 years. The judge who does this says, you have disgraced my robe.
Yes.
Right? My judge said it was his sacred duty to put me in prison. And that even though in my sentencing memorandum and everything, no criminal history, family, Eagle Scout, they took all of the things that I consider credits in my life. They flipped it on its head and said, because of how good he is, you have to overpunish him. They wanted above sentencing guidelines to send a message.
We're saying the same thing.
To deter you, Ron, and other good law-abiding citizens from ever even skirting close to the line. They wanted 109 months to send a message. And he said that. He wrote it in the sentencing memorandum.
He wrote it in the response letter to me, too.
Yes, he wrote it. So this judge, we need to send a message to other judges. As far as I'm concerned, 40 years in prison.
Max it out.
Max it out. Because that is the high, you have betrayed. This isn't a matter of you made a mistake, you've lived a good life. No, you knew precisely what you're doing. You told the other judge to leave their robe on. You walked that guy out the back door. You defended a criminal. Extrajudicial. He's not even part of your court when he walks out. That's a completely separate issue.
She misdirected.
You have no jurisdiction.
She misdirected other officials.
Yes. Now we will wait and hear what the sentencing is. There's a judicial coup. Bukele warned us when Trump was elected. He came to CPAC and he said, you must impeach corrupt judges. Otherwise, they will form a judicial cartel and they will defeat this whole thing. Now, that is happening in the District of Columbia. I'm very familiar with the District of Columbia. Okay. Wow. DOJ has a big problem. Over the past 8 weeks, the dismissal rate of criminal complaints in DC, this is when they take a complaint and they try to go get an indictment. Okay. They bring it before a grand jury, has risen to 21%. Compared to 0.5% over the last decade. Indictments have been like rubber stamps. You know, you can indict a ham sandwich. Yeah, you can. It's really easy when it's a non-adversarial procedure. So how are you getting a 21% failure rate on getting an indictment when you've had a 0.5% failure rate? Because the judges are forming a judicial cartel. And they are making political and ideological decisions. They are influencing grand juries based on that. That is how you're doing that. This is a huge, huge deal. It gets worse, right? How is this happening? First Assistant U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson says $18 billion had been paid out in 14 flagged and high-risk programs in fraud in Minnesota. Thompson says suspects had significant portion of the $18 billion was fraud. The fraud is not small. It's not isolated. The magnitude cannot be overstated. It's staggering industrial-scale fraud. It's swamping Minnesota and calling everything we know into question about our state. All of this, a lot of this fraud, there were complaints that were brought prior, and the judges were dismissing them. And then Trump gets in, puts a highlight on it, and it's like, well, what? All these other cases, we can't do double jeopardy.
Oh, come on. No way.
Judicial cartel, right? It is what we're up against. Now, how does this judicial cartel extend? Well, we've been covering the election fraud, especially from a machine angle. Roger Stone was on with Alex Jones, and Roger Stone has a lot of inside connections in DC. He's a swamp monster. Okay, no doubt about it. Okay, but he knows the ins and outs of DC. And he was basically saying that Susie Wiles has been presented with irrefutable election fraud, and it's starting to come out. And we got a big drop yesterday.
People in the election integrity community and other patriots who have technical backgrounds arranged to show Susie Wiles absolute indisputable proof that both the Venezuelans and the Chinese have manipulated voting machines to interfere in our elections. That's without even getting into paper ballots. It was her decision to take them to the president. It was her recommendation to the president that he approve her plan.
I remember this, right? Putting up the paper on the windows. Scott Adams made a comment. He's like, there's nothing you can say that says it wasn't fraudulent when you have to cover up what you're doing. That right there, that picture right there tells you that election was not fair. There's no chance it was fair. Zero.
And to appoint a working group under Tulsi Gabbard, but including others from other important agencies to examine all the evidence and come back with a report. Now, we know from sources that working group has already seen the evidence of both Venezuelan involvement.
Oh, yeah, because it's totally normal to pull ballots out from under a table or to get ballot dumps, late at night from a delivery van.
After everybody's gone home.
Totally normal. Yeah, this is just routine. This is what we do. Come on.
Involvement in online manipulation of numbers.
Boxes of them. Look at that.
Numbers, and that's before we know what they conclude about mail-in ballots.
Oh, did you see the stuffing ballots? Right? Yeah. Stuffing ballots.
Involvement, Communist Chinese involvement, and online manipulation of numbers. And that's before we know what they conclude about mail-in ballots, because they're still continuing their work. But the important thing here is not just proving what happened in 2020 and probably 2026 to a certain extent, but being sure that it does not happen again. And therefore, the president's, I think, menu, which is correct, paper ballots like they have in France. If the French can count 38 million paper ballots in one day, surely Americans can.
Yeah, because we definitely are better than the French. So this came out yesterday, and this was posted all over the place. I chose to use Amuse. Fulton admits. So Fulton County, Georgia, has been at the center of a lot of this election fraud stuff, right? And remember, this is where Fani Willis charged Trump with election interference because he called Raffensperger and he said, look, there's 11,000 votes separated me from Joe Biden. And there's all these allegations of weird things going on. Go find the votes. Like, go check these ballots. Okay. No, we can't do it. And they put all the ballots in a box and it's just been nonstop. So 5 years later, Fulton County told Georgia State Election Board on December 9th, it does not dispute that tabulator tapes for roughly 315,000 early votes in 2020 lacked required poll worker signatures. County Attorney Ann Brombaugh acknowledged it was a violation of a rule. A Georgia Secretary of State investigation summary later substantiated that 36 of 37 advanced voting precincts failed to sign tabulation tapes as required by statute, yet the totals were still folded in to Georgia's official election results, giving Biden the win. Now, what's significant about this, Joe Biden won by 11,000 votes, and we know that 315,000 votes that were processed through the system have no ballots. There's no ballots. That's why Fulton County won't give up the ballots to Harmeet Dillon. They're 315,000 raw ballots short of the numbers they reported. The tabulators are what go up on the TV screen. And they were unsigned. You know why they were unsigned? Because they were fraudulent. 36 of 37 precincts, the machines gave a number that didn't match the ballot. So they had to basically, this is why these poll things were, they talked about them being hacked or whatever. Oh, but they were just practice poll. Well, if the practice poll tabs were hacked, that was the whole thing. Right? They did the machine fraud and then they backloaded it with fake ballots, which is why they were bringing them in the middle of the night, because they came up with what their numbers needed to be. And then they had to bring ballots out from under tables into vans in the middle of the night. You guys, Georgia's a dictatorship. Brian Kemp is not governor. Nobody in that state can claim to have been elected at all. Every law that's been passed since 2020, dubious. 36 out of 37 counties just generated 315,000 extra votes that got tabulated. Do you think your local school board might have gotten a few of these? What do they call them? Coattail votes from Biden. This is atrocious. This is atrocious, and it's repeated in state after state after state. Who the hell knows what's going on in Washington?
Right.
Who freaking knows? Right now, Fani Willis, in her little deposition thing yesterday with the state of Georgia, or 2 days ago, was telling him that she never cooperated or talked to the White House. Unfortunately, her online checkbook that the county has to do, that she doesn't really have anything to do with, it's just like, they have an online checkbook where people can go and see where the money's being spent, kind of outs her. Look, her billing. DA Fani Willis, White House, meet VP of U.S. Dexter Bond, White House, meet VP of U.S. Robert Brown, White House, meet VP security detail to do it. Thomas Ricks, White House, meet VPs. These are all people that were part of her prosecutorial team. They went up to the White House and met with the VP as they were getting this trial for Trump. They were getting direction from the White House. Hey, Fani, we need you to create this prosecution, and we need to, blame Trump for looking into it because we're hiding all these fake ballots. The guys, they were totally in on it. Totally in on it. And Brian Kemp, Lynn Wood called it best. He's a communist. Okay. This is scary stuff. One of the things that Mike Lindell points out pretty frequently is Florida is just as bad, right? They've just allowed Florida to go one way, basically, but they're getting the two candidates. We had this problem here in Kitsap County. And I know I hate to say this to throw my fellow Republicans locally under the bus, but, we know for a fact our, Republican county commissioner got Democrat money because he was the lesser of, we had a jungle primary and it just so happened they ran too many Democrats. And so 2 Republicans were on the ticket for one seat. Okay. So they backed one of the Republicans. The Democrats threw money at him. We believe that. I don't have evidence, hard evidence, but it's been stated, and it makes you kind of go, huh. Right? How's that going to work out? There was this issue with the seditious six, right? And their whole, you need to disobey lawful orders. Well, between that and everything else that's gone on, intelligence whistleblowers have confirmed, yep, the CIA is running a color revolution on this country.
So I talked to two CIA officers who said that this is a part of a larger hoax, and what they're doing here is they're trying to condition the country to prepare for something bad that's about to happen at the hands of Donald Trump. It's straight out of the CIA playbook. It's a destabilization operation where you get people to mistrust each other. And you do this because she's an analyst. And as an analyst, she would make sure what propaganda operations were successful, which ones weren't. So she knows what works. So the first part of the video, you establish authority. I'm CIA, I'm military, you need to trust us. Second part of the video, they introduce the threat. And the threat's not foreign, the threat's domestic, the threat's Donald Trump. And then at the end, they introduce the solution. What's the solution? You resist, you say no. But they don't give an option. They say this is an obligation for you to do. Now, she is being run because she didn't come up with this herself. She's a Brennan acolyte, and you usually don't have congressmen and senators doing anything together. They kind of hate each other. So in order to organize this had to have had some sort of handler telling her what to do. And it was risky because nothing like this has ever been done in the history of the country. And you can even tell because the media was skeptical and they couldn't answer the question. So they hadn't even been read in on the operation. You see them fumbling and stumbling. And I'm glad that the U.S. military is now investigating this guy, Kelly, because this is what we expect from Donald Trump 2.0. You can't have the deep state interfering with a duly elected presidency and get away with it. You got to draw the line in the sand and you have to make examples out of people.
Yeah, you do have to make examples out of people. I'm just waiting for a few of those examples. Hey, John Solomon had something similar to say about the entire resistance to Donald Trump.
Across from an intelligence agent, now retired, very senior. He looked me in the eye and said, the truth of the matter is we took the playbook for psychological operations and information warfare that we would use against our enemies, and we turned it against the American people to undo the 2016 election and to make sure they didn't elect Donald Trump in 2020. Now, that is a senior intelligence officer with more than 30 years of experience, a patriot who served in some of the most dangerous parts of the world. And he understood that the tactics of making something fake look real were ripped right out of our intelligence communities. Our intelligence agencies not only harmed Donald Trump, they were harming the American public, the national security interests of the American public.
Yep. It's like old news for us. So the other thing too is Senator Kelly wrote a letter to Secretary Hegseth, or his attorney did, I should say more accurately. So they have elevated the investigation into Mark Kelly because he's a retired military, so they can recall him to active duty service. They've elevated it to, what do they call it? A command investigation. In the military, a command investigation is the equivalent of a grand jury, right? So that's where they are going to look at the evidence, and then they're going to decide if they're going to press charges or what their further action is going to be. So that's kind of the equivalent. Mark Kelly has basically only found out about this through the media. For the most part, I guess he hasn't been contacted. So they're asking him, has the department commenced a command investigation? And they're making the argument that because Senator Kelly is a senator and he was acting under the free speech clause and debate clause that the senators have, that you can't come after me. I don't really think that's going to be the case. I sure hope they make an example of him. And not just because I don't like Mark Kelly and because he took a Chinese.
Well, it's the same thing as the judges in black robes. So you have a higher duty, you know?
Yeah. It's not just that he took a communist flag into space, when he was working for the U.S. It's not just because he supports policies that I don't like. It's because of just that. You have a higher duty, man. Mm-hmm. This is my country. Like if you're in
a lot of cases, officers take oaths.
I want to distinguish this. There's the country and there's the nation. I can't say this enough. The country is the land and her people. From dust you come, to dust you go. We are a product of this land. I cannot separate myself from this country. It is my land of nativity. Where my feet stand is a holy place. It's where God planted me. Okay. Then I have the nation. The nation is an artificial structure created by men and women of the country who created a political association, drew borders and said, okay, this is what we're going to defend as our country. Okay. What is the difference between Bellingham, Washington and Victoria or British and Vancouver, Washington? Very little, right? If it weren't for that artificial line drawn, it would just be two neighborhoods, right? It'd be like Silverdale, Bremerton. You know what I'm saying? Like, so a nation is an artificial structure. When you have people who go against the nation in name of the country, I don't consider them traitors. Edward Snowden is an example of that. He let us, the country, know that the nation was committing treason against we the people. Okay. That is not a traitor. He might be in violation of national laws. He might have to be on the run. That's that. But I won't call him a traitor. Does that make sense? Because he let me know that my nation was doing something against me. Mark Kelly has a duty both to the nation, which the military enforces, and to the country. So when you encourage military members to defy lawful orders, and those lawful orders might include something like stop illegal aliens from coming across the border, stop drugs from coming across the Caribbean,
impact the citizens.
You're impacting the country, the people who have to live here that cannot separate themselves from the land, the peasant folk. So there's a clear distinction that you have to see there, right? We can love our country and hate our government. That's not unusual. They're not one and the same thing. Is there overlap? Of course, because the government is for we the people, especially here in this country. Vanity Fair ran that hit piece on Susie Wild. Liz Harrington makes this comment. She says, the Vanity Fair hit piece reads like a blueprint for how they want to impeach President Trump after they steal the midterms. Was this a setup? Why would you ever talk to a reporter who does documentaries on the CIA for a year and then say things like this? It's not retribution. It's justice and accountability. If we don't get it, our country is lost. Lost to who? Our government. Right? Anyways, Susie Wiles said some stupid stuff like this in quotes. There is no evidence Bill Clinton visited Epstein's island, according to Wiles. As for whether there was anything incriminating about Clinton in the files, the president was wrong about that. So she's basically saying, letting Clinton off the hook there. At least that's what they're implying. Trump say, look, this is not supposed to be a retribution tour. Yes, I do, she replied. We have a loose agreement that the score settling will end before the first 90 days are over. In late August, I asked Wiles, remember when you said to me months ago that Trump promised to end the revenge and retribution tour after 90 days? I don't think he's on a retribution tour, she said. A governing principle for him is I don't want what happened to me to happen to somebody else. And so people that have done bad things need to get out of the government. In some cases, it may look like retribution, and there may be an element of that from time to time. Who would blame him? Not me. Okay. So let's talk. So all of this talk I said about accusing Letitia James of mortgage fraud. Well, that might be one retribution. Excuse me, Susie?
What?
Everybody who's analyzed this is like, this is a black and white crime. You should filled out multiple forms that were incorrect.
Yeah.
Okay. So you haven't called him out on that or said anything. Hey, wait a minute. No, not on her, Wiles said. Not on her. She had $500 million of his money, Wiles laughed. The massive civil fraud penalty. So you're joking that, well, maybe with Letitia James. Now, I could see in a conversation, it's not retribution. Well, maybe Letitia James is kind of like, oh, Rosie O'Donnell, right? Don't say those things. She committed a real crime. Don't say, oh, well, jokingly, well, maybe for her it's retribution. No, because if Donald Trump does it like that, he's no better than them.
Well, it clouds the crime too.
Right. How about this one? I mean, people could think it does look vindictive. I can't tell you why you wouldn't think that, Wiles said of Trump. I don't think he wakes up thinking about retribution, but when there's an opportunity, he will go for it. Okay. Donald Trump sucks at retribution.
Yeah, he does.
Oh my goodness. Now, one of the things that's been going on here is MAGA has kind of been, MAGA's in a civil war. I don't really know that MAGA's in a civil war per se, but there's this big amp fest for TPUSA. And I want to point some things out here. So Erica Kirk gave her speech and TPUSA has its agenda.
We are going to get my husband's friend, J.D. Vance, elected for 48 and the most resounding way possible.
Okay, so Turning Point is endorsing JD Vance. That's their marching orders. Unfortunately, there's people like Ben Shapiro who spoke there who don't necessarily feel that way. Now, this clip, Ben Shapiro doesn't talk about JD Vance, but Ben Shapiro does not support JD Vance. Ben Shapiro totally supports Ron DeSantis. But he had this to say about, well, I actually think this is pretty good.
So when Candace Owens says, I don't know, but I know, that is retarded. And we are all more retarded for having heard it.
There's too much clapping in that speech. He goes on to basically say, you know, we have to have real evidence to make declaratory statements, and people who sit in the background go, I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. They're doing all this damage. Here's my problem with Ben Shapiro's approach on that. My problem with Ben Shapiro's approach on that is A, asking questions is how you get to know the truth of things. Okay. And B, Ben, I understand that you're in a huge position where you can't just ask questions that really go nowhere. You want to have some evidence. But this is the problem. If I see them putting up construction paper in a window while they're vote counting, I can say, why are they doing that? And I can either go A, because they don't want people to look at them, or B, because they're committing crimes behind the paper in the window where they're counting my vote. Does that make sense? Ben won't ask that question. Because, well, I don't have evidence they're stealing votes. I know, because they put up construction paper. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. When Jocelyn Ballantyne's in charge of a J6 case, I'm just asking questions. Why is she still working at the FBI? Well, what do you have any evidence that she did anything wrong? Well, yeah, I do. Have you actually looked into any of it? That's why we're asking questions, right? And for me as a peasant, I'm like, well, that's all I can do. Ask questions. Now, do we sit and ask questions that lead nowhere? No, because usually if you ask a question, you get one step down the road, it leads nowhere, you abandon the question, right? Anyways, I just thought that was really interesting. This AmpFest down in Arizona, I think it's in Arizona is where it's happening, is clearly showing there's camps within the Republican Party. Tucker Carlson came to speak, and then you had speakers that were criticizing Tucker Carlson, you know, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so Erica Kirk has decided JD Vance is her man. She's going to be putting TPUSA behind that. TPUSA, as far as the Republicans go, have the largest get out to vote operation, and they're 5 times bigger than they were the day Charlie Kirk was murdered, right? In fact, I'm going to a TPUSA meetup tonight in Kingston, Ron.
Wow.
In Kingston.
Wow.
I went to one a couple weeks ago in Poulsbo, just up the highway here. They just had one in... Have you ever seen TPS USA events in Kitsap, Washington?
No.
It's happening. And multiple of them, right? So that's JD Vance is the guy. But you're going to see a lot of people really come out against that. Specifically the Dave Rubins, the Ben Shapiro's. There's a bunch of them that are going to get behind Ron DeSantis. Okay. And there might be some others that run. Apparently Kristi Noem, a lot of people think she might run for office. To me, the obvious ticket is going to be JD Vance at the top, probably Marco Rubio as a VP, maybe Kristi Noem as a VP if she wants to go that route. I don't think Ron DeSantis has a shot in 2028 unless the swamp gets behind him, which I want to remind people, my opinion on DeSantis has always been the same. He is a creature of the swamp. He's a great governor. He's doing a really good job. But at the end of the day, you can look into some deep background on him, and it does not encourage me to trust him. I have a hard time trusting someone who stood over people being tortured and laughed. And there's documented evidence of that. I have a hard time with that. Like, if you can't see the suffering of someone that ultimately gets declared innocent and gets sent back home. Oh, let me just finish the story. So in Gitmo, right, one of the things that was going on in Gitmo is they take all these terrorists down to Gitmo. They hold them there for 10 years, torture them, do all kinds of horrible things. And then they let them go and they send them back home and give them $20 million. This is happening like a conveyor belt. Okay, so we were self-funding radicalized terrorists as we take them into Gitmo, couldn't charge them with anything because we were just holding them as enemy combatants or whatever. And then when we release them, we'd give them a payday. And we'd release them in countries not of their origin. So a lot of them were getting dropped off in Lebanon with cash. I actually ran into a guy in prison who was Lebanese who worked for the CIA. Remember, they sent me to a max security facility, an administrative facility with death row inmates, all the way down to guys that like me that should have been in a camp. I got to meet some interesting people, like, you know, somebody who was in the cell block with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. So I met a guy who worked for the CIA, was a Lebanese citizen, and the FBI rolled him up and he kept trying to say, well, I work for the CIA. And they're like, yeah, I know, but you're running drugs and guns. He's like, I know, for the CIA. And they're like, yeah, but you're a loose end. Okay. And he got a life sentence. No murder or anything, but he got a life sentence. He's another one of these extraterritorial jurisdiction guys. I have a problem with someone like Ron DeSantis, who was a part of that machinery. Right. I have a problem with Ron DeSantis as part of that machinery. I also have a problem because his family, the Black family, his in-laws, are a part of the swamp too. So anyways, Ron DeSantis is a great governor of Florida. I would definitely consider moving there. But I don't know that I want him in charge of, the NSA, the military, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But his hurricane relief efforts are just bar none the best. Steve Bannon had on Paul Nolan talking about this MAGA civil war that really isn't one, but it's another one of these psyops to get us all divided.
You've got to get everybody in MAGA, because everybody in MAGA is not aligned with this right now. You got the hardcores, the real America's voice, kind of the dead enders, right? We're here talking about it every day. Our audience wants to do it. But when, guys, I'll throw it open. We got a few minutes. When does he make that speech, and how does he enlist the support of not the Warren posse and your audience, the Rav audience? They're there, but the broader context of what the 80 million people that voted for him.
Paul Nolan talks about this all the time, Paul.
Well, for me, you're talking about, for one, we see MAGAs getting splintered in every direction. We see a concerted, let's call it even a psyop, to destroy MAGA at every level and splinter it into pieces with the divide and conquer agenda throughout the social media and the news. Trump is up against globalists. He's up against, on the ground, he's up against the Marxists and the Islamists. And the media never stops spinning everything against him in such a way. I think if you hearken back to COVID, everybody was talking about globalism and Agenda 21, which ended up being Agenda 2030, which ended up being the Great Reset. Everybody has heard of this. So if he comes in a full assault at this point, there are so many alternative media out here like us who could then get it onto the ground. If he comes with a straight ahead agenda, we are taking on globalism. We are going full force at sovereignty for the American people and the American nation, that every one of these nations have plundered our wealth through USAID and NGOs. At this point right now, I think he could come full on and just explain this to the nation and let the people on the ground have the argument in the street, validate it. Because every time you try to bring these things up on the ground, what do you hear? Oh, you're a nut. No way. You're a conspiracy theory. But I don't believe that's the case at all. I think there are more of us on the ground who are willing to fight that argument in the war of, the minds, or the info war, if you will, as an Alex Jones guy. I think we can make a huge difference, especially between now and the midterm, because we are up against, this is the last window to stop globalism and centralized currency. In my opinion, the British Empire is now the British banking system, which is the central banks, which are our ultimate enemy. And you look at that collusion of power. Why do you think they keep wanting to fund this Ukrainian war? They have to. But why do we have to Venezuela? Because there's an endless amount of narco money keeping and propping up these fiat money and this fiat currency globally.
Delgado, can you have that? Can you have that conversation with us if you got so many tech bros around?
Well, I'm Nolan. Delgado left. He had to go hug his teddy bear.
Hey, Steve, one last thing, and then I want to give it. I want to just.
Well, that question is great, though. With the tech bros around, I mean, I would love to touch that subject. Well, for me, I don't know how do you stop.
Hit it.
Well, we have the PayPal mafias. It got a great deal of control. Where do we go with this from here? How do you combat that? I think you got to combat that now before it's impossible to combat.
Steve Bannon really doesn't like the tech bros. Of course, Elon Musk is always saying Steve Bannon's going to go back to prison. So those guys have a little bit of an issue. The British banking system is a problem, but this divisive war with MAGA, a lot of it is artificial. And a lot of it is people that were never MAGA. Ben Shapiro, he absolutely campaigned for Trump. But remember, he didn't endorse him in 2016, campaigned against him. Basically didn't do anything in 2020. He was like, oh, better of two evils. And then in 2026, he's like, Kamala Harris sucks. And he finally got behind Trump. But he's not MAGA. There's many other people like Dave Rubin and many others that are not MAGA. They never have been. They never will be. But That's the party in power. And people don't realize this. Okay, if you watch mainstream news and the way they push these stories and they talk to their audience, they're talking to a smaller and smaller audience. Out there in the real world, people are over the moon for things like getting rid of transgender stuff for kids. People are over the moon for closing the border. People are over the moon for mass deportations. People are over the moon for calling Tim Walz a retard. Okay. All this stuff is exciting for real MAGA, which is showing up in the polling. So despite all the doom and gloom, the midterms are lost, he'll never win, it can't be done, MAGA's dead, don't believe a word of it.
And the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this, negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
But they're going to win the midterms. They're not going to win the midterms. The only way they win it is if they steal it. And the only way to prevent them from stealing it is if you get fueled up, get a good meal in your belly, and go vote. And one of the good meals you could get is Chicago State Company.
What? Look, if you're still scrambling for a Christmas gift, you need to hear this. Our friends at Chicago State Company extended free shipping for their Christmas delivery, but their warehouse just told us they're down to the last few slots. mychicagosteak.com/rumble. Code RUMBLE. Gift your loved ones the top 2% of beef in America. USDA Prime and Premium Angus, hand cut by master butchers. Marbling so good when it hits the bottom, the hot pan, the whole house fills with the sound and smell of buttery meat goodness. It's the call to the kitchen for everyone. Spend $229 and they'll throw in 6 free ribeyes plus free shipping. $240 in premium steak on the house. Your gift shows up in a black and gold box packed with dry ice. They crack it open. Vapor rolls out. Instant Christmas morning vibes. Give them something they'll ask for next year. Don't wait on this. The warehouse is on the line. mychicagosteak.com/rumble. Code RUMBLE. RUMBLE.
Now, I always want you to go buy anything we advertise, right? Because it looks good to us. But please go get some of these steaks, okay? If there's anything you ever buy that we advertise through Rumble, these steaks are one of the things you should go get. We want to make sure we can keep doing their ads. We like them a lot. I'm actually in the process over at 1776 Live. We have a Epic Trust, and we're in the process of, I don't want to use the word acquiring, but I don't know if there's a better word for it, acquiring a 162-acre farm out in Wisconsin where we will be able to run our own cattle herds.
Whoa,
and be able to provide members of that farm association with not organic, grass-fed, non-GMO beef. So if you want to hear any more about that, get over at 1776live.us. But until we have our own beef to pitch, to sell, please get involved with Chicago Steak Company. Okay. We are going to jump over to private, where we are going to be hearing about, oh, by the way, let me play this here. This is Tucker Carlson talking about J.D. Vance. Now, again, there's a schism. This is a real schism, okay? The J.D. Vance crowd, the DeSantis crowd. This is what they hate about Tucker Carlson. All the people that criticize Tucker Carlson, watch. They're going to come out for Ron DeSantis. You watch. Mark Levine and that whole Israel AIPAC crowd is going to come out for Ron DeSantis and not for J.D. Vance. Because J.D. Vance is young. He's 42 like me. And he sees Israel as just any other country. Why would I give Israel preferential treatment over Saudi Arabia? They both sponsor terrorism.
Can I say one thing super quick? J.D. Vance is the future. Period. And you'll never hear me say nice things about politicians. I know them all. There are very few I like. Eric Schmidt's one of them, by the way, just for whatever it's worth. He's a very decent man. Mike Lee is a very decent man. I'm sure there are a few others. There aren't a ton, honestly. They're mostly, yeah, I like Rick. But most of them are kind of what you think they are. Actually, they're way worse than you think they are. And ask their wives, But J.D. Vance is the best I've ever met, ever. He's the combination of intelligence, decency, wisdom, emotional self-control. Like, I don't have that. It's incredible. He's incredible. And genuine affection for Trump and loyalty to Trump is not opposed. He actually really likes Trump. Thinks Trump's an amazing person.
Not like
they
Mike
get along
Pence.
really. It's not fake. And so that's just thrilling for me that there's someone like that. The Republicans have not had that. I don't know how many people were sort of betting on Mike Pence. Sorry. But they don't tend to, politicians don't, the big politicians, they don't want a rival near them. You know, it takes a lot. Like, Trump has changed a lot to hire someone like J.D. Vance, who's 40 years old and really smart. It's incredible. So anyway, I don't really know exactly what I'm saying, but that's just something to be really happy about, hopeful for.
Yeah, and you will see this. You will see, again, the DeSantis J.D. Vance divide, and it will go along the lines of the Trump DeSantis divide. So beware of that. Okay, we're going to jump over to private, and we're going to be talking about what's going on in Europe. Farmers are revolting again, throwing shit all over their parliaments. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple images of that. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with British military recruiting. Pretty hilarious what's happening in Britain. And we're going to touch a little bit on Rob Reiner, another one of these old roasts that from Bill Kristol that was pretty revelatory. The other thing, too, I'll just mention in the public, this didn't really fit into our stuff today, but the question has been asked about regime change in Venezuela. And this is Jesus Enrique Rosas. He's from Venezuela. His account is out of Europe. I think he had to flee Venezuela along with a lot of their political dissidents. But he says, I am Venezuelan. 90% of us want full throttle aggro crank on the pressure gauge. Both the old sternly worded sanctions and conventional diplomacy have been as effective as politely asking a tapeworm to spare your hot pocket. There will be no war with Venezuela for the sole reason that the Maduro regime lacks any sort of military capacity. And why should we care about Venezuela, you might ask? Well, since the Hugo Chavez years, my country has become the safe house for everything from Hamas to Hezbollah under the blessings of Russia and China, pumped to the eyeballs with Cuban intelligence. Even if Maduro is an illegitimate president, leading to narco tyranny, drugs could be the least of the U.S. problems. Having a terrorist safe haven in their own backyard is. Why haven't Venezuelans done anything about it? We have done everything. Unarmed protests became meat grinder under Maduro's paramilitary forces. Elections have been rigged since the early 2000s. We have been murdered, disappeared, and exiled. We have literally nothing left to lose at this point. But you can't see that the U.S. government is after your oil. If it was up to me, help us get rid of Maduro, help us secure a legitimate government, and I'd give the U.S. 50% of whatever is in our soil for 20 years. I'm sure many Venezuelans feel like this. China and Russia are not going to do much. They'll look the other way. They have their own troubles, and Venezuela is no longer as useful as it used to be. Just a reminder, whoever says that the regime change word is wrong, 70% of us already chose Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia as president in 2024. Maduro simply stole the elections and won't concede. But since these criminals control everything from the military, the judicial system, the electoral system, the National Guard, and literally every other institution, we have no more options left. So yes, I approve the ship blockade and vaporizing any drug boats with overkill rigor. This is the only language that these bastards understand. Yep. All right, guys, we're jumping over into the private, and we're going to see some funny things.